Welcome everyone, warm welcome, and really happy to see your faces, your bows, and to be sharing this half day with you. This is a topic that for me is dear to my heart. Rob mentioned that I ordained as a Buddhist nun in Burma back in 2009. I can't believe it's been that long. But Mettā for stability and concentration was my main practice during that temporary ordination. And it brings me joy to introduce some of the things that I learned there to all of you. So let's start with a few brief remarks. As many of you know, metta, love, loving kindness, goodwill, all of those are synonyms for a word cloud for the Pali metta. These are universal qualities of human experience, and they can be cultivated. That's the reason we're here today. Our focus for today is how to cultivate metta in a particular way for Samādhi. And the words stability and concentration in the title of this offering both refer to Samādhi. I personally prefer stability or settledness over the word concentration. And that's because in our culture, concentration is often associated with tightening down, bearing down, effort, a furrowed brow. And instead, the invitation is to consider concentration juicy, like a juice concentrate. It's leaving out what's external and coming into alignment with what's most present, the intention of what's being cultivated. The focus on kindness in metta meditation can often help ease people off of this more striving-oriented way of trying to develop samadhi, settledness, concentration. There are a number of techniques the Buddha taught and a number of techniques more broadly in meditation. This one tends to evoke more of a kind of a spacious ability to be present and undistracted, as opposed to a tight one. The word stability in English has another meaning, which is the kind of stability of heart and mind that can come from integration, from being and meeting what is with kindness. And loving kindness, metta meditation can help with that, even when it is done primarily to stabilize attention. The benefits of metta always go to the practitioner first. Always go to the practitioner first. And today, I'll be teaching this practice differently than the way many of you may have encountered it being taught before, which is classically 5 categories of beings, starting with oneself and a benefactor and ending with all beings. That can be a lovely practice, and it can be used over weeks or months to cultivate samadhi. I did that as a nun in Burma, but I spent days, maybe a week in each category. Got really familiar with each one, and it was only after developing samadhi in that one that my teacher would graduate me to the next one. So that doesn't work so well in a single half-day session, right? It's simplicity. Simplicity is helpful. So today we're going to just keep the practice very simple and focus on what's easier for most people. And I'll offer a range of techniques for that. But in general, the principle in using kindness meditation or any other of the immeasurables, kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, or equanimity can all be used to cultivate stability of mind. The principle that cuts across all of them is simplicity. Simplicity. Not too many words, not too complicated, but engaged. So, broadly, metta is different than other forms of meditation, and while mindfulness is definitely part of it, It's not our focus here today. Instead, the focus is on coming back to what is in terms of the chosen cultivation of loving kindness. And in that way, it's a kind of a contemplation. There's this whole class of meditations in Buddhist practice that are more contemplative, intentionally evoking ideas, concepts to further develop, as opposed to opening to simply what is, as powerful as that is. In this practice, there's lots of room for imagination, playfulness, lightness, making it your own. So I'll just say a few words about why we might do this. In the Buddha's teachings and later scientific studies show spiritual, emotional, cognitive, health, and relational benefits to practicing metta meditation. And this is a form of practice that's been cultivated now over millennia. So I trust the ancient Buddhist wisdom as much as the science on this one. Those benefits include better attentional control and concentration, more satisfaction and happiness, and gradually cultivating these capacities first as a state after an individual meditation session, and then over weeks, months, and years as a trait, a return to a certain kind of default. I spoke much more about these benefits in other intro courses, including the one for Sati centers, so feel free to look back at those. And the science, anyway, is constantly sort of evolving and adding and changing. So even though I'm up on scientific studies as far as last year, there's probably more out this year. So today, the focus is on how. And I'll introduce 5 principles to keep in mind. They spell out the acronym PAIRS, P-A-I-R-S, for those of you who like that kind of thing. The first, P, playfulness and interest. And the second, something we did a little bit in the intro meditation, is appreciation. Appreciation is kind of a superpower in this practice. Third is intention. At its core, this is a practice of cultivating intention. Fourth is repetition, key to any kind of learning. And the fifth is to savor. Savor what arises simply. Savor. Even just the wish, the desire to cultivate kindness, goodwill, is powerful. It already starts working on you. So, are you ready to practice? Okay, I see nods. That's good. You're still with me. This goes more smoothly if you hold it lightly, start where it's easy, and trust the process. So with that in mind, to start with, we'll be working with what some people call the easy being or the benefactor. This is someone who can be your metta muse. It can be a person, a religious figure, a beloved pet. One very prominent and respected Buddhist monk I know picked a particularly cute squirrel as his easy being. So it doesn't have to be exalted. Kittens, puppies, fine. Young kids, great. I've even known people who've picked redwood trees or canyons. Now that can be, you'll have to be a little bit inventive with the phrases if you choose something without sentience. So as I'm talking, just kind of flipping through in your mind, maybe there's somebody that's easy for you. Really, nobody complicated. So, I love them, but like siblings and spouses, maybe not the best pick for this category. Pick something simple. And notice how it feels in your heart just to think of them, even before we start meditating. Just notice. And the invitation is to close your eyes and tune into that feeling in your heart, your emotional core, wherever it is. And find a comfortable posture. We often say in the meditation scene, a balance between relaxation and alertness. For the purpose of meditation in Mettā, emphasize the comfort. It should feel good. No distraction because of physical pain if you can avoid it. And now call to mind an image of them. And if you don't visualize, you can imagine that you do. Or a felt sense of this other one. Even a concept of them works in a pinch. And in your heart, your mind, do a little review of what you appreciate or admire about them, what their good qualities, their virtues are. Not a whole essay, but maybe more like a little list. Taking a moment. Can be with images or flits of memory or simply mental words to sense into these good qualities and actively appreciate each one. And then letting those words go, feel into again the emotional center of yourself, keeping them in the forefront of your attention. If it's helpful, you can place a hand on your heart. Notice any feelings, including warmth or gratitude, any intentions of goodness that you feel towards this other one. Perhaps even imagining breathing through your heart center or your core. Offering good wishes to them. You may imagine them receiving them. The change in felt sense or expression, body language, or just trusting that receiving. And with each breath, noticing what it feels like to offer goodwill, kindness. And now and then, letting whatever sensations, feelings are there to be held in their attention. Don't need to make anything happen. It can be helpful to hone these good wishes with brief phrases or words of kindness, appreciation, goodwill. I'm going to offer some short phrases that have become classic in Western Buddhist practice. And the encouragement is you may use those if they work, or find your own in your own language. I'll start with slightly longer ones, and the invitation is to pare them down eventually to a single word. May you be safe from inner and outer harm. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be peaceful and free. Tuning into whatever words work for you and repeating these phrases. Perhaps offering on the out-breath and allowing, receiving any sense of resonance on the in-breath. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy, peaceful, and free. Thank you for your practice. And so, friends, I'll offer a few more thoughts and instructions, and then we'll have a Q&A period and a break. But first, I'll have a little bit more instruction and practice. And I'd like to talk about using your strengths and capacities, whatever they are, your learning styles, for metta and for stability. I've introduced different techniques today. Many of you know them. And different ones of you will find some of these techniques useful at times and not at others. And maybe some of them are completely natural and others just don't resonate. And that's natural. We have different predilections, different learning, cognitive styles, different ways of relating to the world. Unlike classic mindfulness meditation, as I mentioned before, metta involves imagination, creativity. Creativity is encouraged. Play is okay. In fact, it's celebrated a little bit in this practice. And this is an invitation to find what resonates for you and leave the rest, at least for now. So far we've covered embodiment and breath in the guided meditations, as well as visualizing or a felt sense of your metta muse, your metta object, they sometimes say. And we've covered using words or phrases. All of these are very common, kind of classic components of metta meditation. And now I'd like to talk about, in the next few minutes, techniques that aren't as common or aren't as talked about, but that work really well for some people. But first, before I say that, I want to acknowledge that words and phrases don't work for everyone. And too many words, too many phrases is usually not all that beneficial for deepening samadhi, deepening concentration. So, all that said, samadhi cultivation is usually helped by intent attention on embodiment, breath, sensations, being in the moment. And don't underestimate the power of reciting phrases in order to change inner chatter. So part of how metta works for concentration is by subduing unhelpful mental dialogue and chatter, what these days neuroscientists call the default mode network. If we're reciting metta phrases, what we're not doing is engaging in self-criticism, self-evaluation, stories, judgments, at least not as much. And so for many people, it can be quite powerful to replace the default narrative with some kind of simple phrases. And I know for myself, both in an intensive practice in Burma and even in daily life, if my focus is metta, I'll tune in and notice that, oh, my mind is just reciting these in the background, which is a beautiful alternative to the normal. Kamala Masters, a very experienced and respected meditation teacher, kind of focuses on metta. That's one of her focuses. And she and I had a conversation some years ago about it because it's also been an interest of mine. And she talked about how for many years in her early practice, excuse me, she just couldn't get away for a retreat. So her teacher, Munindraji, told her to just practice in daily life. And one of those practices was reciting metta phrases, going around the house, caring for the young kids, cleaning the house, washing the dishes, whatever it was. And she discovered that over the years, as the practice unfolded, that metta phrases had almost completely replaced any other mental chatter whenever she just wasn't doing anything, thinking about anything on purpose. That's kind of amazing. And it's not just that it's a recitation. It changes the feeling inside over time. So that's the plug for the words. And honestly, I don't use them that much. I tend to de-emphasize them. However, they work really well for some people. To cultivate deeper samadhi, as opposed to shifting the inner dialogue, and those two can operate in concert, right? They support each other hand in hand. And to cultivate the deeper samadhi, it's helpful to engage as completely with as much embodiment, as much interest as possible. And for many people, the phrases alone just don't do that. So one way to do this is the visualization. Another way is internal, or for that matter, if you're home alone, external gesture and movement. Those of us who are kinesthetic learners, this can be really powerful, really powerful. From a Buddhist perspective, it engages volition, that about-to moment of moving. Whether it's a physical movement, a movement of speech, lips and tongue, or a movement of heart and mind. So it engages that volition. It also, from a neuroscience perspective, engages the sensory motor cortex. And that deepens connection with the practice. So I'll demonstrate here. And these were forms of engagement that I discovered on these months-long metta practice. I would practice it while walking. Now, obviously, you have to keep your eyes open when you're doing that, or most of us do, unless you have a guardrail right there or something. And eyes open or eyes closed, it's possible to use movement like a gesture from the heart, a gesture of offering, of receiving. And so you can do it for yourself. You can do it below the fold of the video camera if you don't want to be seen, if your camera's on. But think about what kind of gesture of offering, goodwill, and generosity might work for you. This is one that I came up with. I also invented some like simple hand mudras that would point the intentions in a certain direction, or another one for the unspecific metta that it goes in all directions. The invitation is to play a little bit. Visualize that or feel it in your body, or actually do it. And part of the value of this, and this can happen with the phrases alone or with the breath alone, is it starts to build a rhythm internally. And I did this with the phrases too. May you be happy, healthy, safe, peaceful, easeful, free, or whatever's safe first, as I did today. But allowing a rhythmic kind of component to infuse your practice can help maintain a sense of attention and concentration. And it's also a manifestation of samadhi. So that rhythm, it has two components, connecting and sustaining. And those of you who have done concentration series with me before have heard me talk about it. The connecting is like a striker striking a bell. And I'm muting the bell from resonating on purpose. Connecting, bringing back, bringing back. That's vitaka in the Pali. And then vichara, sustaining, is the resonance of the bell between the strikes. So what that does is it begins to open us to, okay, it's not just a checklist approach of a phrase or of a sending or receiving, but there can be a little carryover between this vichara, this sustaining. It's like the difference between tapping a cat and petting a cat, or a dog if you prefer dogs. Staying in contact with the intention. And if emotions are there or feelings are there, staying in contact with that. And that begins to gather the attention, gather the stability, the samadhi, all together. Finally, attitude of the heart and mind is key. Even the challenges in meditation, including metta meditation, are onward leading as long as you're generous, appreciative, open with yourself. And if you can't be that way with yourself, being patient with that rather than shutting down. This practice works even when it isn't working. And I'll close this little section of instruction with a story from very famous metta meditation teacher, Sharon Salzberg, one of the founders of Insight Meditation Society on the East Coast of this country. And she talked about being at Insight Meditation Society, IMS, for a long retreat where she was dedicating herself to the practice of metta. And early in her practice, she's been very candid that she was highly self-critical. That was the causes and conditions of her life. And so she's working with the phrases and she's working with visualization, and it's going on for days, I think maybe weeks. And she's got this attitude like, this just isn't working. I'm not getting anywhere. May you be happy, healthy, that kind of thing. And then she was called away from the retreat because of some kind of family situation. And so she had to sort of move more quickly and get herself ready to leave. And she has this recollection in her story of being in the bathroom and picking up something that she needed to take with her and accidentally knocking it on the floor to where it broke. And the first thought that came up in her mind was, Sharon, you're a klutz, but I love you. And that's when she knew it was working. So a plug that this practice can be working even when it doesn't look like it's working. It's helpful for Samādhi to have warm feelings come up or emotions come up or tune into sensations, and all of that can happen. It's lovely. And it's actually not strictly necessary to begin the cultivation practice. This is kind of turning an ocean liner over time, shifting a lot of causes and conditions. And they may be invisibly shifting for a long time before you see a payoff. My teacher in Burma, Sayadaw U Indika, a very well-known Mettā meditation teacher there, who's not so well known in this country because he doesn't have English. But he would say to me when we discussed this on my long retreat, if it's a choice between cultivating feelings and intention, cultivating the intention is more important. Stay with the intention. Trust the intention. It works even when it isn't working. So that's my little wrap about the sort of next level of Mettā meditation for stability, Samādhi. Please.
Thank you, Dawn. I use I practice in the Thai forest tradition, and I use the mantra bhau. That it represents the one who knows, and it's very simple and fairly dispassionate. And I wanted to know, could you suggest another sort of one or two word? I'm sort of done with may beings be happy. I need something.
Yes. And I get it. Like this is part of the general encouragement to find your own language and use your own language that resonates for you. So I use Buddho sometimes myself. And in fact, I will use it as synonymous with another single word that I'll use in this practice, which is simply Mettā, Mettā. And for me, eventually it turns into Buddho, and eventually they mean the same thing. However, play with it for yourself. Even something like to just find that one word. And as you heard me, I sing it, I chant it. And that is something that I didn't bring up directly in the wording. But please, by all means, if you're someone for whom singing or chanting works, that is a beautiful way to cultivate your internal dialogue. And it brings more juice and joy, typically. So thank you, Damon.
I would like to know if it makes sense, this kind of thought that I try to use in the practice of Metta and Karuna. That is about intention, but is more, for me, it makes more sense, more than cultivate like a development with phrases and visualizations, is trying to recognize in each action, each thought, an intention of metta and karuna and compassion, even if the action goes in a negative direction, an affective or the destructive direction. But in my thought, the intention is good. The intention when everybody do something, it's to make help and get away of suffering. But because the ignorance, we go to the wrong ways, usually, frequently. but the intention is good. So what I am trying to do is, for example, in the example of Sharon that you did, recognize, oh, it was a mistake, but I'm trying to, this is a kind of a way of the body, of the thought or mind, take care of yourself with the limitations that I have. And for me, it's a kind of disidentification too with the affective emotion or thought or distraction. And at the same time, I don't have any aversion, but a good feeling. Oh, you trying to take care of me, but it's not the most wise way. What do you think?
Okay.
Because in Theravada, I don't find much this. I find in Tibetan Buddhism uh, uh, a way of thought like this, but in Theravada, I have difficult
Yeah.
to find.
Thank you. It's a profound question, Allison. And I'm going to do the best I can with the way I understood it. So there's two basic delineations to consider, maybe three. The first is this your own action coming from an intention of metta that doesn't have that impact? Or is it another person's action? And part of the reason I say that is when Theravada tends to focus more on our own actions of body, speech, and mind. And then, yes, absolutely, intention is key. However, so is sila, ethical conduct, and non-harming. So it's important to notice the difference between the intent and the impact, not for the purpose of being unkind to ourselves, but for the purpose of learning. The Buddha talks about with every action to notice after the action if it resulted in harm or good, harm or benefit for self and other. And if it results in harm, to resolve not to do it again. So it's a learning feedback loop. And the same with an action that results in benefit, to notice, oh, this resulted in benefit. So yes, do it again. And then eventually we may notice midstream in the middle of that action, harm or benefit, and adjust accordingly. And then as wisdom develops and experience develops, it's possible to even notice at the very beginning, harm or benefit, and either refrain or move forward based on that. So that's a really beautiful practice to do in conjunction with your own metta. And then what you're describing in terms of noticing others, this beautiful, I think it's a quite profound recognition that most people are doing the best they can at any given time, regardless of how things turn out. And unfortunately, for some people, the best they can do might be harmful, given the conditions of their lives and minds informing them. That doesn't mean we need to tolerate or allow catastrophic amounts of harm. However, it informs that kind of compassion and metta that you're speaking about towards the underlying conditions or delusion or misunderstandings that might underlie behavior that isn't so helpful. And for most people who are really trying to do the best they can, it's a beautiful way of interacting with others. You don't see as much about that in Theravada, although in my own experience with practicing metta deeply, that insight naturally emerges and it comes with appreciating the best in people while also recognizing their limitations. And it's a beautiful way to navigate the world and a deeply valid form of the practice. It's operating at that volitional level that I hinted at, that doing gesture begins to evoke. So I hope that's helpful. That was a lot of words. Thank you for the question and for your practice. Karen, please.
And I really appreciate this offering, both what you're teaching and the way you're teaching it. It's really so lovely. Thank you. Thank you. And I actually really appreciate the last question too and your response both. I have a question and a comment. I'll tell you the question first, which is the easy being metta was something new to me. Hadn't really thought of doing it that way. And I'm wondering about entering into that, like, the moments before, just breathing deeply and letting go and relaxing. And then, with the timing of when invoke, the easy being and all that lovely, helpful work. And I'm going to put this in a context, which is my comment, which is I just had a really big surgery on my neck. And I had this quite profound realization during the early nights of so much pain. And my husband lay behind me and sort of just basically sort of rubbed my head in the most, I felt like he was just right there with me. He was so right there. And I had, because I was sort of watching the pain rather than being in it, because of his love for me and his devotion, I think held me in this kind of metta field. And then I could see things I really couldn't see very clearly before. I could see, for example, no self. This is not personal. This is nature expressing itself, in my storm of pain. And later, now it's been 5 weeks since the surgery, and I've been wanting to kind of evoke that loving kindness field as a way to it was such a lovely place to see things and to realize things. But when I choose my husband, where we interact all day long and get irritated with each other from time to time, it somehow brings up more, somehow. So when you mentioned the easy being and you said, don't pick your spouse or your family.
And that's why.
And I realized, maybe that's such a wonderful, thank you so much for that. But so back to the question, which is, entering into that, evoking the easy being, do you have a suggestion for those early moments of starting the sitting practice?
So, and by the way, this will be the last question, folks, and then we'll go to break. It's a great question. And I promise I'm not cheating by my first response, which is do what works for you. Experiment, play. A lot of people hate metta meditation because it's been taught in this cookie cutter kind of way. And it shouldn't be like that. It should be a playful, creative exploration and expression of your heart, your learning style, your mind. So, for some people, it's helpful to start with a few minutes of just breathing and mindfulness meditation first. Other people, it's helpful to start with someone. And I know people who even choose religious figures or teachers they don't know very well, where they are fully aware they don't know this person well or this being well. But that makes it easier to just cultivate a sense of appreciation for what they do know. And for some, it's easier to start by, as that beautiful story about your husband, stroking your head, receiving it at the beginning rather than offering it. That is a beautiful way to start this practice. At different points in my life on retreat, I've even imagined a circle of people around me that I love or care about, all sending me the metta and then beginning with that. So it really is like the invitation is to play and discover what works for you in that moment. It won't be the same thing every day, maybe, right? I don't know if some of you heard them, but my neighbor's kids were really being raucous for a few minutes during one of the meditations. And like, that just totally brings me joy. I don't know them that well, but I've interacted with them. And to just like let those little bursts of joy, bird song, whatever, inform the practice and begin to create that field. So I hope that's helpful. And we will be back. I misspoke. Sorry, Rob, but we will be back at 15 after the hour, roughly. A moment or two late is fine. And we'll be in the main room. So I'll see you then. offer a last set of kind of more formal instructions, perspectives, and then we'll have one more guided meditation before we close. And so I'd like to start this little portion with a story. Many of you have heard this story. Some of you, no doubt, have not. That at a certain point in the Buddha's development as a practitioner, they become quite advanced, actually, with all kinds of meditative practices, and was in a phase of practicing extreme austerities, right? Staying up all night and not eating more than a few grains of rice a day. It's said, he describes in his ancient teachings during this phase of his practice, that you could touch his backbone through his belly. So he was quite emaciated and weak and thin. And at a certain point, he had weakened so much that he'd been practicing by the side of a pathway. I hesitate to call it a road because in ancient India, they were dirt pathways. Perhaps a cart could go by. And he had weakened so much that he was just kind of lying there, perhaps even mistaken for dead, but definitely not doing well. And probably wasn't able to practice much anymore. And then that morning, a woman, Sujata, happened by, and she had her meal for the day, perhaps her lunch, packed with her as she went off to work in the fields. And it was a meal of rice gruel, kind of a rice stew or something like that. And she saw him, and she was so moved by compassion that she knelt down beside him and, I imagine, cradled his head in her hands on her lap and gently spooned in and fed him her own meal for the day. And thus fed, she went on her way, but thus fed, he revived enough. And the way I interpret this story is it wasn't just the food, it was the kindness, the care, the connection that revived him. And he was able to sit up and he began practicing again. And as he was practicing, he had this memory of being a child, maybe 10 or 11 years old, under the shade of a rose apple tree in his father's estate, watching them start the harvest. And he was so peaceful and so content and felt so safe that he just naturally went into a state of absorption, friendly absorption, without any striving or effort or denial, self-denial. And as he remembered this, this thought arose in him. This pleasure is not to be feared. Pleasure is not to be feared. Kindness is not to be feared, but instead to be cultivated. And it was that recognition that led him to begin to practice and later establish for the rest of us fortunate enough to come after him, the middle way, not austerities and not indulgence, but the middle way. I don't believe it's any coincidence at all that this turning point in his practice towards awakening came from a moment of kindness and generosity, that it infused his mind and heart and practice. So this kind of brings me to the most sort of powerful aspects of cultivating metta as samadhi, which is first, regardless of what techniques work today for you or don't, and what happens today or doesn't, that fundamental attitude of nourishing yourself with kindness and care, that is onward leading. And even if it's not possible in your mind and your heart at this point in your life, and at different points in people's lives, including mine, it hasn't been. to appreciate, to love even the intention and the wish for it. That itself is powerful. Just wanting to be able to have it is powerful. In my own mind and heart, I think of this as loving the intention of metta, appreciating the intention itself. And this can happen before the feelings actually arise for you, and it can happen well into the process when you're in jhana or moving in and out of jhana. So it's onward leading, and it turbocharged for me my own practice, because it's like having metta for metta itself in a way. And that energizes things. Any kind of undivided attention itself with some kind of benign intention can feel like love. And that undivided attention, that interest, that engagement can be an expression of appreciation and love. So, celebrating, noticing, savoring, aspiring to that intention, and being able to trust the process, regardless of how things are going. These are both really powerful ways of relating to the practice. And so, too, is noticing and celebrating any glimmers of happiness, joy, pleasure that might arise. Not grabbing for them, that won't work. Not clinging on to them, that doesn't work either, not for very long anyway. And it tends to kind of mess them up when you do. It's hard to enjoy something when you're clenching to it like a fist. Yet to savor and appreciate any good feelings that come up. Savor and appreciate them. Above all, cultivating that intention. It's a little bit sad to me, and it's true, and I had to hear it too as a practitioner. You have a permission slip to experience joy and happiness in this practice. Not just a permission slip, but enthusiastic encouragement. And if it's not happening, that's okay. That means the intention takes time to build. And like I said in that story of Sharon Salzberg, it works even when it's not working, as long as you do it, as long as you keep doing it. It can take a long time to begin to shift the mental habits of the mind. So trusting the process is an incredible ally. And being content. I think when I first started practicing this practice, I had a real gift, both with mindfulness and with this practice, of having absolutely no expectations. Like, I'm just going to do this, see what happens. And for me, not very much happened the first year, actually. Like sitting on the cushion, and it was like fine, nothing much. But the gift was there wasn't a lot of expectation. And gradually I started noticing, oh, you know what? I'm happier and kinder and more patient in my daily life. And that was enough. Little bits. The Buddha said that cultivating metta for the length of a finger snap is not wasting your time, is worth doing. So those finger snaps are like drops in a bucket. They add up over and over. So to place the drops in a bucket, to allow those to go in and celebrate when there's a little bit of a ripple, that's part of the art of this practice. Again, to hold it lightly, be playful with it. An acronym PAIRS I spoke of earlier: playful, interest, appreciation, intention, repetition, and savoring simply. All of those are onward leading. And then loving and appreciating the intention itself begins to energize it. So I hope that made some sense. This is the kind of more broad encouragement to building metta for samadhi. And we're going to go straight into another guided meditation for about 25 minutes or so, and then we'll close out our time together. Oh, taking a sip of tea or water, wiggling, stretching for a minute. Yeah, it's a long time to be in front of a Zoom screen for all of us, right? Some of you are already doing this, but as you're meditating, I'm not doing it because I want to be present for you, but you're more than welcome to turn away and be like this so that you have a little bit less screen energy coming at you, if that's helpful for your body, your eyes. And finding a comfortable posture for this time. And again, starting with a couple of breaths, softening the eyes and closing them, and tuning in again to your emotional core, your heart center, or your torso, wherever it is. Calling to mind again your Mettā muse, easy being. Maybe even greeting them internally, a smile of recognition or a hi, a bow, whatever is appropriate. And allowing the breathing to be natural. Attuning to any emotions or sensations that come along with re-entering rapport with this other one and with yourself. Attuning, offering with an imagined internal gesture or on the out breath, offering wishes of kindness. And receiving. Dropping in very simple words, if that's helpful, to build a rhythm. Safe, happy, healthy, peaceful, easeful, free. Noticing, savoring any feelings of kindness, goodwill, pleasure, or little pulses of joy that might emerge. No need to make anything happen, just allowing and savoring if it's there. Allowing the mind to be content with whatever's arising. And then, if it's helpful, perhaps offering these wishes along with this other one or on your own, outwards, more broadly, letting the circle of metta expand outward, including yourself and this other one, and whoever else, other creature, people, who it feels right to include in the path of these wishes. Radiating kindness, goodwill out like light from a star, like a gong ringing peacefully in still air. In all directions, as far or as near as it feels right for it to go. It feels right to drop the words and just radiate, send these wishes outwards. Feel free to do so, just resting in, allowing these silent intentions to ripple outwards through all corners of this body, heart, and mind, and beyond. Noticing any sensations arising in conjunction with this practice. Savoring what feels good. Holding with compassion everything else. And returning to the wish of metta. If it feels right, sending appreciation, aspiration, a sense of love to that intention as well. Allowing the intentions of metta to shine like starlight or saturate like fog, to fill the whole body and mind. And then move outwards of an unbounded, including all that arises in experience, to be received, met, included in goodwill and kindness. visualization to subside, images of beings far away or nearby to subside for a moment. And being with the flow of present moment experience, however it is, noticing the overall quality in your body, heart, and mind in this moment, the sense of kindness, goodwill. Then turning your internal gaze towards your fellow practitioners today. You're in this Zoom room or others who support your practice, wherever you are, especially those here. And sending intentions of appreciation, goodwill, kindness out to them. Using words or phrases if you wish, or just a silent intention. And as you do this, attuning to receiving, imagining receiving those silent wishes from everyone else here. Taking it in, being nourished by it. May we be safe, happy, healthy, peaceful, easeful, and free. And then turning your internal gaze further outwards, appreciating this intention of metta. And if it feels right, forming the aspiration that this practice ripple through your actions your heart, your mind, your life, to benefit others here, near, and far. May others experience the benefits of this practice. May the benefits of our practice here together ripple through our own minds, hearts, and lives to all of the lives we touch and all of the lives they touch, outward and outward. May all beings everywhere be safe, happy, peaceful, and free. And may our practice here together be one cause and condition for that freedom. Thank you for your practice. And feel free, friends, to stay in silence if you wish. And for the last few minutes of our gathering together, you're also welcome, if you wish, to put a word or two or a short sentence into the chat about what you're taking home from today. Well, you're at home, but what you're bringing with you in your lives today. And if it doesn't feel right to engage like that, you don't have to. You can just stay quiet, stay with yourself. Read others if you wish, or just notice in your heart what feels interesting, helpful, nourishing to take home. I'll read a few. This is in part to help engage it in your memories. Finger snaps. Kindness for self and others. Appreciating the intention. The middle way. Gratitude for the community being here. Gestures, patience. Intention is enough. New ways of visualizing. Receiving as well as giving. Thank you for your practice. The Mettā Muse. Finding a new Mettā Muse. And offering Mettā for Mettā. So whatever of these words or others resonate for you, the invitation is to take them in and really use that repetition, use that intentionality in your heart to begin to build more of a basis for your practice going forward. It's working even when it doesn't seem to be working. And as people are saying in the chat, it shifts a lot of conditions and causes that may not be visible right away. You can't fail. It will emerge. Trust the practice and the process. So thank you very much for your attention.